There we go.
That's better.
There we go.
Oh, okay.
That's what wasn't happening.
Yep.
Christy just said that
I hit the wrong
the air
button.
conditioning made her sick.
Not sick, just forced.
She's just giving Andrew crap.
Well, we want you to talk like that.
Yeah, I'm really upset about it. I feel really responsible.
Agree. It's just next time Jack breaks into song, I'll
We
have
better
to sing
start on
tenor
the
with him.
Yeah, I do feel bad about that. It's like,
It's okay.
You saw my last.
I can show you stories now. I'll tell you stories about So, probably about 09, when I actually got my own offer. 2 days. And it was an access permit to college. And it's no longer going to be rubber. They put in a work order for this plant. And it got came out. It's all completely. And eventually it turns out, they had to rip my entire floor out. It turns out that when they installed all of the offices are under building codes, right? So how they have filters. People who install them into the floor, so you have to rip open the floor and change the filter. So the filter hadn't been changed in like 7 years. Nobody knew it was there. I'm sorry, they didn't know it was there. So that's what's going on in that building.
Andrew, who's doing this kind of housekeeping?
That's academic.
I phoned Monday and 1 hour over.
Oh, yeah. Because we were in Chicago for a week.
But I'm going to take a version.
Okay, so let me say that. So for the iPhone, if you put
Yeah. Room numbers. Jan install old version of stuff. Old room numbers and old PDF papers, old room numbers.
okay, so for the Android version, they should install it.
So I got news and good, but they should uninstall it.
Hi, nice to meet
I think you should.
I have written 10 and 5-minute warnings at the correct time.
So you come from far away. Well, it's because you're in Boston, so
Yeah, me too. I assume
for some reason I keep on picking up and having to I'm not getting it. Yeah, thank goodness, but you don't get it for free. It's just not good. You have a lot of meetings done today. That's a common response I hear. And then which I'm not sure if you could just do it online and not myself.
I have my first one.
Yes. I have that at Mostow. I'm going to check it. But yesterday I did inventory last. I had to get it on the slide.
You're a global.
24 hours. Yes. And well, just to see the final version, we already had sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
All right, so I'm sure a few people are going to come in a little bit later, so I think there's plenty of room in the back, so that'll work out nicely. On behalf of the International Artificial Intelligence and Education Society and your local host, the Institute for Intelligent Systems, I'd like to welcome you to the 16th Annual International Conference of the Artificial Intelligence and Education Society. So I'm Andrew Alney. I'm the local arrangements co-chair together with Phil Pavlik. And I'd like to recognize our sponsors for this year's conference. So Carney Labs, Pearson, our Office of the Provost, the IIS, the Institute for Creative Technologies, and the Society itself. So in a little while, I'm gonna, yes. So in just a second, I'm going to pass things off to the program chairs, but before I do that, I'd like to make a few announcements about the conference. So the first is where things are. So you found the Fogelman, so congratulations. All the keynotes will be in this room, and tonight we're going to have a reception that's in the atrium that you just walked through on the way to get here. So in terms of the sessions themselves, the sessions for the main conference will be in 3 different rooms. This big room right here is the Zone, and we also have the Methodist. The Zone and the Methodist are across the lobby from each other, so they're very easy to find. The third room we call the Fishbowl because it has glass walls around it. The Fishbowl is actually on the 2nd floor, but if you're next to the Zone, there's a staircase that takes you right up to the Fishbowl, or if you want, you can take the elevators up 1 floor. But it's very easy to go back and forth between the Fishbowl and the Zone if you want to hop from session to session. Posters are going to be in the lobby every day at lunch. So if you're a poster presenter, you can start setting up your poster at breakfast if you want. And this is where we are right now. This is the Fogelman Executive Center, and the little FIT on the bottom right there, that's the FedEx. There'll be signs telling you where to go at all times. Okay, so when things are. So if you're using Conference Navigator, there are a few really important notes. So the first is that if you're using a mobile version, if you've downloaded an app, and you've downloaded the Android app, you need to download the newest update. The newest update has, do I need to be louder? Turn the volume up? Actually, I don't know how to turn the volume up, so I'm just going to lean into the mic. So if you have the Android app for Conference Navigator, you need to download the latest update because there are some room changes. If you have the iPhone app for Conference Navigator, there's a problem with the time zone. So if you put the time zone of your phone into Pittsburgh time, then it'll be correct. If you're on Memphis time, it'll be off by, I believe, an hour and a day. So that's something to watch out for. Of course, the paper versions are correct. This is the paper version right here, and then we also have things on our website. So lots of places to get this information. Okay, internet access. So probably the 2 most important things are coffee and internet access. So coffee is going to be in the lobby. There's coffee at every break. And internet access is through the network U of M Guest. Now that's going to be primarily in the FIT. You'll have a U of M Guest network. All you have to do is put in your email address and you'll have internet access. If you're in this building doing an interactive event or something like that, there's actually a network called Fogelman, and you can use that network. So just contact an organizer or a volunteer if you have any problems with internet access. Something that's a little bit unusual that we're very happy to provide is a nightly shuttle to dinner. So every night, except for the banquet nights, because the banquet nights are going to be at the banquet, we provide a shuttle just on the street that you crossed coming over to this building. So right in front of the FIT, there'll be a nightly shuttle that looks like that. It's bright blue. It's really hard to miss. It'll run from 6:30 to 10:30, and it'll take you to a local restaurant district where you can have a good time. There are also places within walking distance. Most of those places tend to be very casual, so it's kind of up to you what your preferences are, but if you want to go someplace a little bit nicer, there's a shuttle. Okay, and final note about the banquet. The banquet's going to be at the Memphis Zoo. It's going to be pretty spectacular. We're going to have buses on Patterson, which is another street. It's the street on the other side of the FIT. There'll be signs. It's really easy to find. There'll be huge coaches. They won't be the blue buses. The bus is going to load at 6:30 on Thursday, and we'll be there for, I don't know, maybe until 10 o'clock or so. All right, finally, all this information and more is on our website, AIED2013.memphis.edu, or you can just ask local volunteers. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Chad and Kalina.
morning, everyone. We are your program co-chairs. This is Kalina.
And this is Chad.
As many of you probably know, this is the 30 years since the first AIED meeting. And I'm wondering, that's awesome. I'm wondering how many in the room are younger than AIED. Can we see your hands, please? That's awesome. The theme Kalina and I selected for this year's conference is From Education to Lifelong Learning, Constructing Pervasive and Enduring Environments for Learning. And as you look around at the keynotes and as you look at the talks and the workshops, this theme really is pervasive. I think we've built a lot of robust systems, we run larger studies. I think we have a lot to be proud of here. So as program co-chairs, we had a lot of hard work, but we also had a lot of fun working through the process.
So we'll start with the fun.
Yeah, we'll start with a few of the fun things. Kalina and I had quite a few Skype sessions organizing, and if you're not sure, this is a lorikeet, and they're right by Kalina's office window in Sydney, and I could hear them all the way to Los Angeles, right in my ear. Luckily, I'm a bird person, so it was fine with me.
Yeah, I think that if other people had Skype meetings with me, they would recognize that. Still be in bed, actually. Okay. So we were overly polite to each other. So if you received mails from Kalina and Chad, it was very likely to be sent by Chad, and Chad and Kalina, it was probably sent by me. And we said, your turn, my turn. No, thank you. No, thank you to say thank you. So that's what it's like when you work with Chad.
The ordering of the names.
And the ordering of the names, that's right. Yeah, we drove Springer mad by changing the order of the names in the proceedings. So, but I won.
And of course, our leader, Jack, was the conference chair. And this is how I always pictured him when we had our conference calls. I gotta say, I've known Jack for a while, but I've never worked this closely with him before. And if Jack were a superhero, he would be the enumerator. Everything's enumerated. It's pretty wonderful. In fact, his abstract for his keynote, enumerated. He can mix and match numbers, Roman numerals, bullets. It doesn't matter. He's got it all, the full repertoire.
And he actually enjoys it as well.
And also he's a great computer scientist because in every conference call we had some audio problems, and so we engaged in a very systematic debugging process where he would carefully tell us to mute your mic and re-engage your mic. And it turned out to always be Phil's problem. Phil is, I don't know if Phil's in the room. So, there he is, right in front. Did you fix your mic yet?
Mute.
So we thought we'd give you a quick overview of the program, kind of go over some of the statistics, and then we're going to get right to Jack's talk.
Okay.
Oh, I'm doing this one. So, yeah. We have a schedule here. We're trying to keep up with it. So keynotes every morning at 9 a.m. Today is Jack. Tomorrow is Maria, and Friday will be Doug. All three of these talks should be incredible.
And who is in this room before we move on to the other side of the building?
And being in this room is a great thing because it meant we had too many people. So we had to move it at the last minute over here because attendance was too high, which is a great problem. Poster sessions, as you have seen, at lunch every day. So there's an hour and 45 minutes scheduled for that. Interactive events and opening ceremony will be tonight. We hope you can all stick around. And then tomorrow, we have a new thing that fits in with the conference theme. Louis Johnson and Ari Bader-Natal set up an industry and innovation track. So we hope you can all attend that and see how some of our work and some of the work in industry is starting to merge and starting to share goals.
We will continue the program with a banquet tomorrow, and we're going to have Natalie and Gord who are going to do some entertaining. We've got a panel on culture, learning and technology at the end of the conference, so we hope that you will be able to stay on and participate to the panel. And then we're going to have, after the conference, at the end, we're going to have the business meeting and the closing ceremony.
And then the change on Friday?
Oh, that's right. So there's the program are up to date in here, except there was a slight change in the last session on educational data mining, 6B on Friday, the last session. It's just the two papers that are starting the session have been swapped to let one of the presenters catch a flight.
That should be up to date on Android, the iPhone probably next week sometime.
If you're in Pittsburgh time. Okay, so we are pleased to announce the best paper nominees. So we've got these 4 papers, and you've got the times here where they're going to be presented. So we've got 2 papers that are normal papers, and the last 2 ones that are there are also student papers. So we're going to have 1 prize for the best paper and 1 prize for the student paper, and they're going to be announced at the closing ceremony.
Authors on this list, if you're buying drinks for anyone, buy them for Ryan Baker. He's the awards chair. Andrew mentioned Conference Navigator. If you haven't looked at this, do. This is an awesome tool for us. It's also a result of NSF funding from Peter Brusilovsky. So you're supporting our own community by using it. It's really a special tool, and you can see which friends are going to which talks and leave comments and recommendations. It's really a nice tool, so we hope you try it.
So just to let you know a little bit about the process that we followed for selecting the papers. So of course there was a call for paper with submissions. We let reviewers bid for abstracts. We had on average, well, we had 3, 4, even 5 reviews per paper. So we were very keen to have a lot of feedback on papers and making sure that the authors had ways to improve their paper, and we had 1 meta reviewer, so 1 per paper. The decisions that were borderline, so the borderline cases were discussed extensively. Sometimes we had pages and pages and pages of discussions over a paper, and yeah, then the notification and also the aftermath. So I'll let you use your imagination to know what was in the aftermath, but there was some, and that was also the job of our job to handle that. Yeah, and the camera-ready copy, of course. So some important statistics.
Yeah, we've collected some statistics for you also. Let's start with the really important stuff.
Yeah, the really important ones.
So, Lena and I went back to our email and counted how many we've exchanged with each other, and the actual number is 1,715.
We had 5 organizing committee calls with the local team and with Jack, and we had 5 of them, and I have to say they were starting for some of them on Sunday Eastern Standard Times at 9 p.m. So.
Which is when Jack begins work for Monday, as far as I can tell. So, 53 minutes spent debugging microphones, speakers, back channel, everything that went wrong during the calls.
And 148 minutes is the total number of minutes that went over the scheduled time.
That's all? I thought that was the number of minutes we spent scheduling the next call.
Oh no, we didn't count
That's
that.
a good one. We should have done that.
So more statistics. So we had some other type of statistics that you also care about, I'm sure. So the submissions to the main track, we received 168, out of which we accepted 55 full papers. So that's an acceptance rate of 32.7. We had 32 countries represented in the submissions. And the reviews for the main track, so we had a total of 576 reviews for the main track. The main track being the full papers and the posters. So that is an average of 3.4 per paper. And that means that the program committee, which includes the senior program committee and the normal program committee, had to review on average 6 papers. So, well, we'll come to the thanks later, but that was...
The program committee was wonderful, and the senior program committee, so thank you to all of you who participated. If you are interested in serving on the program committee, we don't know who will chair AIED 2015 yet, but I would contact them and ask to participate. We can always use more. I thought this was astounding. Workshops were an incredible hit this year. 114 papers submitted to all of the workshops combined, which it is remarkable, if you ask me. We went from one workshop in 2011 to 10 in 2013. Also 75 posters. So I'm pretty sure that these might be AIED records because of basically how high they are.
Hi, who's high?
All of us on this 9 p.m. Sunday night calls. I thought everyone might be interested in this. This is from EasyChair. These were the top 10 categories for how you all tagged your papers when you submitted them. Probably an interesting way to gauge our interests and the directions we take. If we started doing this every year and looked at the changes, it might be fun to analyze.
Okay, so some special thank you. So that's coming from us.
You edited that slide.
Well, yeah. Sorry, I should not. I did. I should have been CMK. I have these are special thank you from us. We'll have other opportunities to thank formally all the people who contributed, but we just want to say that we had a fantastic team to work with, and these are the names of all the people that have been contributing heavily in selecting a wonderful content for this conference. And we also have to thank very warmly the program committee. So the senior program committee and the normal program committee, as well as the reviewers that have been external reviewers that also reviewed a lot of papers, and we thank as well the session chairs that have kindly accepted to chair the session, and the doctoral consortium program committee and the workshop chairs and the program committees for all the wonderful workshops we've had. And of course, we thank all the authors, so all of you that have contributed, and for you as well for being here and participating to this great conference.
The sponsors have already been mentioned, and John, we didn't forget you. You're up there too. He wasn't on this list. So. And so let us finish with just a little bit of more of our favorite moments. And this is the way I was invited to be program co-chair. And I'm going to have Kalina read the email from Jack.
Maybe Jack, you want to read it. So, chère Kalina, formidable, je te remercie 1000 fois. Et tu, Jack? Jack.
Another email. This is great. While I find Jack's figures compelling, I don't have his confidence in using them predictably. Thus, my inclination would be to remain conservative, even though I have tattoos and drug periods. However, I do defer to Jack's judgment. Best, Andrew. Kalina and I were merged together in Jack's mind, and so he came up with some names for us, and so we were at various times referred to as Kalina Chad or Chadlina.
Chadlina, yeah.
Kalina Chad sort of sounds like the capital of one of the stands. Yeah. So
Chadlina sounds a bit over the top for us.
Finally, we can't let the June 4th, the very last call, go. It was about 95 or 100 minutes of Jack versus the rest of the group.
Guess who won?
Did you attend every session yesterday, Jack?
I don't remember that call.
Oh. This was the debate about how to schedule yesterday.
Oh, this, yes. Yeah, the plumbing, yes.
Yeah. So it's about to be Jack versus everybody again after our good friend Lewis Johnson introduces him. So thank you, everyone.
So I've known our invited keynote speaker for a long time, and although I haven't seen his slides, I have a bit of an idea of what to expect based on what I know about it. To the extent that anybody has an idea of what to expect from Jack Mostow.
Including Jack Mostow.
Exactly. So I'm here a little bit of a coach to help you all have an idea of what to expect so that you're prepared to learn from Jack's talk. So first of all, a little background there. I think Jack is a great choice for giving a keynote talk at this conference for a number of reasons. First of all, you all know that he's an accomplished researcher in AIED. You may also know that he's a dedicated musician, and actually he's as passionate about music as he is about AIED. And so for a conference here in Memphis, I think that's very appropriate. And you also might know that before he got involved in AIED, he did some seminal work in machine learning and how to take advice and operationalize it to learn, which makes Jack an expert in giving advice as well. So there are all these great reasons for him to give a keynote talk, but except for one thing. You never are sure if what Jack tells you is true. So this is something I've learned through experience over the years. Let me give you one example. So a number of years ago, Jack and I met at a conference, the AIED conference in Philadelphia, AAAI. And we were standing in the banquet line, we were talking about a topic we were both passionate about, namely music, and there was a young lady standing behind us.
Seattle.
Was it Seattle?
Seattle 87.
And it was June, right? Or was it? Yes, I remember it well. Yes. So anyway, yes, we met up there, and there was this lovely young lady standing behind us. And it turns out she was also a musician, so she joined the conversation, and we had a very lovely conversation. Afterwards, I was surprised to learn that Jack and this young lady, Janet, were engaged to be married. And then I was really surprised to learn that Jack was telling everybody that I was the reason why they were getting married. So I want to set the record straight. Jack is the leading man in that show, and I played just a minor supporting role. So now, here's the challenge that you all face. We have a fellow here who has a lot to be able to tell, a lot of advice to give, but you can't be sure that what he's going to tell you is true. So what do? First of all, you should all put your critical thinking caps on, okay? And you should, as you're listening to this talk, you should ask yourself, okay, how do I know that that's true? And if you're not convinced, well, then you should ask him, how does he know that it's true? But see, he's already way ahead of you, because of all the people I know in the field, he is the most accomplished at thinking hard about how to determine scientifically what's true in AIED. So he knows the answers. He may not tell you the right answers, but he likely knows what they are. So with that introduction, I'd like you to please welcome, and I want to all to now enjoy and experience the keynote presentation of Jack Mostow.
Thank you very much for that kind introduction.
That's not true.
Thanks for the advertisement, Jack.
Here we go. Okay. Right. Oh, that's cool. Okay. So first of all, thank you very much for that kind introduction, Louis. I'd like to thank Chad Lena, also known as Cal Chad, and Andrew and Phil and Art and the cast of dozens who brought all this, and I'd like to thank all of you for coming. In various languages, let's see. Good day, good morning, Gates. Wait a second. Oh, let's see. I think that's Alaikum Salam. There's some I don't know too well. Bom dia, Brasil. Everybody in Rio de Janeiro. Buenos dias. Ahoy. Hey. Darn. Finland. Finland is really hard. Oi. Boy. Thank you. Bonjour, je voudrais vous tous accueillir à Memphis ici. Guten Morgen, ich habe nur ein Jahr Deutsch studiert und ich habe nicht so viel gearbeitet. Ich habe einen sehr guten Professor gehalten und habe diese Sätze viele Sätze gesagt. Luckily for me, English is an official language of Ghana. Hello, Felicite. Yes. Boker Tov. Toda. Poshonim? Top. Ohad Gozanas. Ergat Gozanas. Goedemorgen. Tagala. Darn, that's in there too. Wait, I have it someplace. I have it in. Where's the?
This is the whole talk right here.
Yeah, Kumastaka, yes. And Slovenian, Zdravo. All right. I guess. Okay, good. Salam alaikum. Shukran. Kamsanda. Mit Mesk. Bezdas. Nimhei. Okay, I covered German and French. Let's see. Trinidad and Tobago, thinking this is English. Okay, but everybody else is English. So, are we done with the talk yet? So, this is the title of my talk, but there was something I wanted Louis to help with. Louis? Come give me a hand with something. Louis was a founding president of this organization, so he gets to actually hold the presidential baton that I will be relinquishing to Tanya on Friday. Let's see, what have we here? Oh yeah. Could you cue the orchestra?
You brought an orchestra? Okay,
I
sure.
think it's the Czech Symphony.
Volume.
Oh, this volume? Okay, sorry. We'll get it in a moment.
Using the baton more dramatically.
Yes. It's my fault, entirely.
It's volume. Where's the volume? It might be also here.
I'm not surprised there's technical problems.
Yes.
This, by the way, is why I didn't use slides for my introduction. This is a learning moment here.
It's up again, but it was louder than this.
It was.
Yes. We'll try once more, otherwise we'll go straight to the Au fond du tendre sein. Okay, let's try that once. You know what? Let's just go straight to it's in. You always got to remember to talk anyway, so it's all right. Au fond du tendre sein, arrive fleur et d'or, une femme pareille,
Une femme.
je crois la voir encore.
Je crois la voir encore.
La foule prosternée la regarde étonnée. mise à travers la foule, elle sauve un passage.
Son voile déjà nous cache son visage.
Mon regard, hélas, la cherche en vain.
Elle fuit,
Elle fuit. Mais dans l'âme soudain, elle étrange à terre ses limes.
que voulez-vous me consumer?
Ta mère pousse ma main,
Ta mère pousse ma main.
tout mon cœur l'âme se parle, et nous change à l'ennemi.
Non, que rien nous sépare.
Non, rien,
Que rien nous sépare.
non, rien.
Le temps de rester
Je
amis.
rends de rester
Le
amis.
temps de rester
Je
amis.
rends, oh oui, je rends de rester amis. Oui, c'est elle, c'est la déesse. On se joint à nous unir. Oui, fidèle à ma promesse, comme un frère je veux te chérir. C'est elle, c'est la déesse qui vient en séjour nous unir. Oui, partageant les mêmes sols, soyons unis jusqu'à la mort. And the Czech Symphony, please take a bow. Thank you. I'm supposed to give a talk too. You can, yeah. Thank you. Right, well. Trying to figure out what we've learned in over 20 years is a kind of a high-pressure assignment, and I've been basically procrastinating as long as possible until now. So, let's see. I'd like to thank the sponsors and the Academy, and let's see. Okay, and these are just some of the more recent people who worked in Project Listen over the 2 decades since we've been doing this. Some of them are here. And I'd like to start, by the way, how many of you have heard of Project Listen's Reading Tutor? Okay, about half-ish. And how many of you like to watch television? All right, so let's watch some TV.
First, click on your name.
At Fort Pitt Elementary School, a second grader named Aziza gets reading help from a dedicated mentor.
Choose a story to read. Old Mother Hubbard.
Software called the Reading Tutor listens to Aziza and offers help.
Please read aloud.
Oh, Mother Hubbard. The Reading Tutor is part of a new wave of computer software now being used to supplement classroom instruction. The system's designer is Dr. Jack Mostow.
It is very easy to explain in 4 words. Children read, computer listens. What the Reading Tutor provides is lots of infinitely patient assisted practice in oral reading. And that's a missing ingredient for all too many children whose parents or teachers don't have time, or in some cases ability, to listen to them read aloud.
When Aziza gets stuck, the Reading Tutor can sound out a tricky word.
You're a great reader.
To keep young readers interested, the computer can offer a variety of clues.
Rhymes with phone.
Getting a computer to understand spoken words is a big challenge. The Reading Tutor software must cope, just like our ears and brain, with the fact that the same word can be pronounced in different ways.
Old Mother Hubbard
Went to the cupboard.
cupboard to get a poor dog a bone. But when she got there, the cupboard was there, and so the poor dog had none.
Isolating the sounds of speech is difficult even for high-powered computers. No wonder children sometimes struggle as they try to develop phonemic awareness.
Let's read this sentence together.
But with help from the Reading Tutor, Aziza is making good progress.
Aziza came to me at the beginning of the year, pretty much a non-reader. She had a very limited sight vocabulary. She was very insecure about her reading, very reluctant reader. She's ready to take a challenge now. She'll try anything. She loves to read.
Very good.
One of the first to test Mostow's technology, Ms. Prevo wasn't thrilled about the idea at first, but she's become a supporter.
It's a part of the classroom environment. The kids move back and forth from it without it interrupting any of our routines. It's become a friend more than a threat, which it was at the very beginning when I first started to use it.
The system is now running in 20 classrooms around Pittsburgh, and Mostow's studies indicate it's working.
When I explained these results to the principal in my long-winded academic way, she boiled it down beautifully. The children who used the Reading Tutor were closing the gap.
You're a fantastic reader.
I want to give credit where it's due to the producers of this. It's a 3-minute segment from a 5-episode show commissioned by the Department of Education, and the producers made stuff for National Geographic. So, although this is old, it still kind of gets across the basic idea. All right, so let me define what I mean by reading. All of you read, but very few of you probably think about what does it mean that you read. And reading really is multiple skills. So one of them is involves the written form of the word, mapping it to the pronunciation and turning text into speech. Or going in the opposite direction, hearing the word, mapping it to model pronunciation and spelling. Fluency is the ability to identify words quickly, accurately, and effortlessly, but also to read expressively. Vocabulary, I mean repeating the meaning of a word. So given the spoken or printed form of a word, linking it to some meaning in some mental representation of its meaning. And finally, comprehension. As the principal said, is making meaning from print. So that's the primary purpose of reading. There's some others like performance and poetry and so forth. All right. And eventually this is, oh yes, right. So in this talk I'll give some examples from fluency and vocabulary. So the Reading Tutor is 3 things summarized by these words. It listens, so it's a tutor that listens, so it's a delivery vehicle. It's a exquisitely instrumented research platform because it logs lots and lots of stuff. And it's an experimental vehicle for actually not just observing, but administering randomized controlled trials. And we have a bunch of data. How many of you recognize this picture? This is Herb Simon. And Herb was Nobel laureate in 1978 in economics, but he was Nobel caliber in half a dozen different areas. As much as anybody else, he deserves the title of the father of artificial intelligence. And he used to give a talk on how to do research at the beginning of every year. Joe might have seen that talk when he was at St. Peter's undergrad. So the first thing he said, I promised myself I was going to tell stories because people remember stories. They forget talks, but they remember stories. And this actually is a story about this community sort of let me think, it was 2002. How many of you were at ITS, Intelligent Tutoring Systems Conference, right in Biarritz? Yeah, Joe was there. And there was some workshop on culture. I guess I better be careful what I say here, but priorities differ between cultures. It was a little chaotic. The workshops had been 40 miles away in a different country in San Sebastian, Spain. Those of you who were there when you start talking. And the local dignitaries who were supposed to be at the opening ceremony were very late in arriving, the mayor or something like that. So they waited, and they delayed the entire rest of the conference. So it went through the opening ceremony into the break. They still weren't there. And they said, and it was just utter chaos. And the result was that the conference chair came through at lunch and breezily announced that in order to catch back up with the schedule, all talks would be shortened from 20 minutes to 15. Now, if you've gone to or given a talk that a talk at an international conference is like a sculpture in time, like a musical performance, and you do not willingly go shortening it by 5 minutes. In fact, I'm lucky that Bev forgave me because once with jet lag some years ago, actually it was in Australia, I was chairing a session and I had a brain fart and I gave everybody 5 minutes fewer, and I'm amazed that Bev still talks to me or any of the other victims of that session. We kept magnanimous colleagues. Anyway, so I thought, this is outrageous. But, and of course, no way were they going to shorten the 2-hour lunch. And so, with the uniform waiters and the linen tablecloths and the wines. But after some of the wines, I readjusted my attitude about cultural priorities. Because the truth is, when I go to these conferences, I remember the dinners with people much better than the talks. And that's probably what you'll remember too, like the banquet or some weird guy got up and saying, whatever it is, the talks are kind of just harder to retrieve. Anyway, back then they had the young researchers session opposite the part of the expression grown-up talks, which is sort of, we have not repeated that mistake since then. But the young researcher talks were just desperate to get senior researchers to come. So I went there because I was interested in one of the topics. And it was kind of late afternoon, and the wines had their effect. So I was sitting there sort of semi-comatose. But I found all of a sudden I was under pressure to say something wise. And I thought, oh, shit. And the point of the story, there actually sort of is the point. You can do a lot worse than to channel Herb Simon. So I thought back to that talk that he used to give. And the first piece of advice he had was you should pick a research question, not a research topic. There were many junior researchers at in that session. Nobody had ever told them that. So they had topics, but God knows what research question they were addressing. But I've been lucky enough to see Herb give this talk. The question needs to be significant, and that's socially determined, Herb would say. It means that people care about it. And he also would say that it had to be right size. Typically that means not too hard. Now, a lot of research is done by graduate students who don't realize that what they're doing is impossible. Please don't tell them, by the way. But the job of the advisor is to try to cut things down to something manageable. Now, besides you need a research question, you need an approach to it. And Herb used to use the term of the secret weapon. Source of power is a term I've heard used by Doug Lennon or Ed Feigenbaum. Some idea, something, not necessarily an idea, but something that you can apply to that problem that nobody's tried before. And Herb used to say, it can't be that you're smarter than the other people because you're not. Now, Herb was pretty damn smart, and he believed that even of himself. So what could the secret weapon be? It could be, if you're really lucky, nobody ever asked the question before. But if it's an important question, probably somebody did. Perhaps there's a way to ask the question a different way, to reframe it. Maybe there's some new device that wasn't available before. Like, imagine there's a new microscope, and now you can see things better than... imagine when the electron microscope first came along. Made it possible to answer questions about biology in new ways. Maybe there's a data set. We're blessed now with huge data sets. For example, the Data Shop has these enormous things from Carnegie Learning and other large data. So that's a secret weapon today. Maybe it's a new way to represent things, and Herb was big on the power of representation, or some new method, whatever. ... And so in this talk, I'll give a few examples from Project Listen. So one obvious one is using speech recognition as a secret weapon to capture problems improving reading. Now, I got to be honest here. I'm sort of opportunistic. So a lot of this work, we had the hammer before we found the nail. Some work I'm not going to even report about today. How many of you have heard of the Google Ngrams corpus? Good. So Google surfed over 1 trillion words of web text, and they just counted up how long does each sequence of 5 or words occur, and they 40 or more times. And they put this out as a corpus, and when I saw that, I thought, wow, there must be something really cool we can do with that. And we published some papers that did. By the way, the 2-page abstract it's sort of a table of some of these problems, and then pointers to our publications page with sort of little acronyms in case anybody wants that. But the table doesn't make a very interesting talk. All right, so here are some questions and some approaches. I'm just going to focus on a couple, but here's just a subset. So does the tutor help overall? I'm starting with that because it's often the first question people ask. It's not the first chronologically that we looked at. Well, conventional ways to compare gains to various alternatives, like independent reading. This is acronym for, this is TLAs. I'm still married to Janet. Thanks, Lois. Janet worked for IBM, which is full of TLAs. TLA stands for 3-letter acronym, like IBM. They're just full of them. So ELL is English Language Learning, BAU is business as usual. So there was a study of this with human tutors. This actually was studies that other people did. There have been controlled studies of reading tutor against various things in Canada, in Ghana, and India, but that's not what I'm going to talk about today. All right. One of the first questions we had to address is, what should a reading tutor do? So imagine that you have a magic box that listens. So you can build a reading tutor that listens. What should it do? And Wizard of Oz studies is a good way to deal with that. Why and how to listen. We have a whole paper on that, I think a slide I'm going to skip, but so there's a bunch of things you can use speech recognition for. I got rid of this slide. Oh well. How much is the tutor used? Just take all the speech that got recorded. That turns out to be a very simple measure that some students came up with. Okay. Sorry, this is a different version of it. What do kids like? Okay, kid test prototype. What practice helps best? And I'm going to show, that's one of the questions I'm going to address here. I'll show some approaches to that. Does something help? How to assess skills? Okay, anyhow. So let me start with this. So what how practice helps best? So here's an exponential learning curve familiar to psychologists who are also used to power laws of practice. This is average over 750,000 encounters of less frequent words. That's words. Sorry about that. Okay, so this is the reading time, how long it took to say the word "good" in the head before, and how many times the kid had seen the word before. So 1 means it's the first time they saw it. And you can see that it's a pretty good fit to this curve, just aggregate the average over time. So an exponential curve looks like this to fit it. So better means fewer errors or less time or fewer help requests. And this is the number of trials. And this is just an exponential curve. So A is the performance of the first encounter. B is the slope, the learning rate. T is the number of trials. Okay. So far, this is conventional stuff. Joe Beck, who is sitting right there, thank you, had the key insight, which is that not all trials are created equal. So don't count them the same, count them separately. I should explain, by the way, that when I was trying to figure out, I've probably hundreds of slides over the years, which ones to put in, I thought, well, geez, I don't know. I'll pick the ones with the best PowerPoint animations, because in the long run, that's what we're all judged by. All right, so suppose you teach trials, so suppose you have two types of trials, type 1 and type 2, then but you think that they're not necessarily worth the same. So you stick in this free parameter beta that describes how valuable is a type 2 trial compared to a type 1 trial. How many type 1 trials is a type 2 trial worth? So if beta is greater than 1, means type 2 is worth more. Beta is less than 1, less. Beta equal 1, that are equally useful. In general, not just two types, it's you can have a bunch of types. And that method is called learning decomposition. And that is, so I took up all the paper references, and I thought I put them back this morning, but apparently I didn't. So anyway, this is, Joe first published this at EDM 2006, before there was even an EDM conference workshop, and I'll try to call out who did the work here. All right, so using this, Joe was able, in successive papers, answer a bunch of questions about the relative value of different types of practice. He started with something that's been known to psychologists for over a century, sort of as the sanity check, which is mass versus space practice. Practicing sped out over time has more lasting effects. But with this method, he was able to actually quantify them. Showed that if you see the second time you see a word, or third time, it's worth about as much in terms of fluency growth as half the first time you saw it on a given day. Repeated versus wide reading. So suppose you have a certain amount of time. Should you read the same story twice or two different stories? That was an open question in the field of reading research. Oral reading fluency develops very, very slowly, so it's hard to tell. And using this technique, it was able to show that overall, so if you don't just aggregate different types of kids, seeing a word again in a context you've seen before, so think of this rereading a story, is worth about half as much as seeing it in a new context. In 07, I see this reference survived the purge. Joe looked at the effects of learner control. So there's lots of studies that show that learner control is something that kids like. Many, many fewer show that it affects learning. And he showed that kids learn more influence, gain more fluency from the stories they picked than from the stories the reading tutor picked, because it takes turns for the kids picking stories. I'm not going to tell the epilogue, well, maybe I will, because I said I would tell the story. Let's see, October, I guess it was, 2 years ago, when we had EDM and AIED separate hemispheres, it took a 3-day plane trip to get from one to the other. I think it was 3 days, because after the first 24 hours, I was in some bizarre plasma state of consciousness. Joe said, why don't you figure out why? That would be a good thing. Was it because they picked different stories, or just because they were getting picked? Here's a cautionary tale. I thought, well, I'm going to use 3 different modeling techniques to answer that question, and I'll write this great paper, because they'll all agree with each other, of course. And I made the mistake of starting to write the paper before doing the analyses. The damn data did not cooperate. And I still have like a half-written draft of that paper that we did submit to EDM and a lot of head scratching. So yeah, data doesn't cooperate. Data is nasty stuff. I mean, it's good, but that's why we work with simulated learners. Okay. For those of you with the EDM banquet. A study that we did with Xiaolan Zhang looked at transfer. So there's a big thing of word families, like rhyming words, in primary school education. There's lots of tables of them. So we looked, first of all, if you see the word cat, how much does that help you being fluent in the word cats, or vice versa? A word with the same root. A dog, and dogs, a doggy. And it turned out it was the transfer was about 50%. Again, this is aggregating. It changes as kids become more proficient. A word with the same rhyme turned out to not be significantly better than nothing. And that was a big surprise, because there's so much emphasis on rhyming words. Again, this is for fluency. For decoded, deciphered words could be different. All right. So this is a study that we presented at the 2012 annual meeting of the Society for Scientific Studies Week. And this is a bit of a mouthful, so let me explain. But I'll just point out the research questions in red. Here, the technique was to embed an experiment in reading theory. So I need to set up some context for this. It turns out that practicing connected reading is better fluency practice than practicing isolated words. But why is that? If you could read a word in isolation, surely you ought to be able to read it in context. But why doesn't it work out that way? And work by Sandra Martin-Chang has shed a lot of light on that. Basically, if you can be tested on your ability to read isolated words, practice in isolation. If you're going to be tested on your ability to read aloud fluently, practice connected text. But what's the mechanism? Why would that make a difference? So, if you're seeing a word in isolation, then you can decode it, you can decipher it, and if you know the word already, you can recognize it. If you're seeing it in context, well, if you see 2 words in a row, one thing you get to do when you're fluent is looking ahead at the next word while you're reading the current word. Let's see, the eye movement, Keith Rayner has studied eye movements in reading for over 2 decades. And so parafoveal is a long word that means to the right of your peripheral or outside of your peripheral, it's your peripheral vision outside of your foveal vision. So the word you're looking right at, you can see with the highest resolution. The word to the right of it, you can still pick up shape, and it turns out that that's important. Maybe it's some sort of syntactic processing. So if you see a phrase, then you're parsing it. Or maybe if you see a whole sentence, then there's some comprehension processes that become enabled. And so maybe that's helping you with the fluency. And what I wanted to know was, if you split the difference between seeing in isolation versus seeing in writing text, where's the magic sauce? Where's the action coming from? So we put an experiment in the reading tutor. Within subject, within story experiment, so I'll explain the design. Before the story, the reading tutor would preview, would pick the 5 hardest words and preview them in 5 different ways. So the tutor would show the word, the child would read it, and then the tutor would read. Hardest we just operationalizes the largest number of letters, which turns out to be inversely proportional to word frequency. By new, I meant they hadn't seen that word or a word would say with the tutor. And what we varied independently was how much context would they see the word in. So, and then we did all the visualization stuff. So here were the 5 conditions. One of them was no exposure control, no preview at all. Seeing the word in isolation, seeing it in a word pair, in a phrase, or a sentence. So this example, this is going to be the preview if there's no exposure control in any time. Suppose the word is difficult. And the diagram is very difficult, and the phrase is very difficult to learn, and the sentences, this word is very difficult to learn. A made-up example, just to get the point across. The outcome. One of the cool things about experiments in the reading tier, the randomization within subject is really easy to do. So we've had examples, experiments that have been running for years, because they're randomized versus reading tutor. Years later, years sometimes pass before we decide, oh, well, let's call that an experiment. What's the outcome variable? And so we can define it after the fact. And in this case, we define the outcome variable as their performance when they first encounter that TV word in the story. So do they read it fluently without help? So the kids will click on a word for help. The latency is the pause of the hesitation for a word, and how long does it take them to say the word. So these were the variables that we used to measure the outcome. I'm fond of saying that no clipboards were harmed in making this data. I have this sort of mental image of psychology research assistants having to run the 30 subjects, the magic statistical number of significance. So we don't have clipboards. And I'm also a big fan of unpaid child labor for getting data. Probably, time to just give them 40. Anyhow, so this was the kids. Second and third graders means about ages 7, 8, or so, somewhere around there. So we looked at the percentage of words accepted by the speech recognizers read correctly, how many words the kids picked up from help, how many did they hesitate on, if they hesitated, how long did they hesitate? We normalize that by the word length, because word reading time and latency are linear in word length. Okay. And then we put this into a linear mixed effects regression. So the treatment is a fixed factor. The word is a random effect, because we want to be able to generalize other words. Children individually often do random things, but this just means statistically that we want to be able to generalize to other children. So mixed effects models are wonderful things for getting as much information as you can out of the data, but in a statistically kosher way. And maybe it's a time elapse effect, so how long has it been specific word? Okay, so here are the results. First of all, if you look at across the percentage of words the kids pick them for help, the more context they previewed in them, the less likely they were to pick them for help. And there wasn't like some cliff effect where like bigram is all you need, and then it's just sort of more of a continuous thing. There are some statistically significant differences here, but the overall trend is significant. So the context made an effect on that, and it also had an effect on hesitations. Here the picture a little less clear cut, but basically more context counts. But Jessica Nelson, the postdoc who was doing this analysis, noticed something really interesting. Now, I should explain that for years, since our AAIE 97 paper on the sounds of silence. It's always nice to have like a cool, catchy title. We've been using the amount of hesitation as a very sensitive measure of growth and fluency, or at least so we thought. But it turned out that all of the action was not in how long they hesitated, it's whether they hesitated. So if you just look at the words where they hesitated, there was no effect of anything. And that was sort of a big surprise. So the effect that we'd seen that seemed to be using mean hesitation as an outcome variable was disguising the fact that it was just what percentages of words were getting hesitated on. There may be a lesson there somewhere for somebody, but that was a surprise for us. So in summary, the more context helped in terms of reducing help requests and hesitations, but there's no effect on the duration if they hesitated. So what's going on there? So one hypothesis that was advanced by somebody who had at the time, whose name unfortunately I don't remember, is If they don't recognize the word, then they have to decode it, and at that point there's no advantage of prior exposure. They just have to figure it out from scratch. It's an interesting, well, if you care about reading, it's an interesting experiment. Okay. Well, that was just for the few thousand words in the experiment. We did a follow-on analysis, and when I say we, I mean Sébastien Lallet, who is over there, yes, was visiting for 6 months, and I asked him to do this analysis. So he looked at all the words, not just the easy words, all the encounters, not just the first encounters, and he found the same thing. There was, with Jessica helping with the statistics, nothing predicted, if you just looked at the words where there's hesitation, we couldn't find anything that accounted for any disparities. So that's kind of cool. All right. So another question, so I'm switching gears to another question, is does help at all? Joe's name used to be here because this was the one of Joe's ITS 2008 papers. It was nominated for best paper award. Sadly, it did not win because it got beat out by Joe's other paper. Oh wait, sorry. Oh sorry. This is the one that did win. It sadly, yeah. When he won the one for the other, I condoled him on I think for this one for certain, whatever. All right, so this should actually say Al Corbett on it because this is the seminal 1995 knowledge tracing paper. Here it's represented as a. How many of you have seen some version of? Well, Peter, of course, you've seen basic knowledge tracing. Okay, how many are familiar with knowledge tracing? Okay, about half of it. So there are 5 parameters here. One of them is usually assumed to be 0. So there's the new is the probability that somebody new is still before they encountered it, practiced it at all. These are the learning, the knowledge parameters. So the probability of not, given that you didn't know it at step I, of knowing it at step I+1, forgetting is the opposite, and we usually assume to be 0. And then guess is the performance parameters. Guess is the probability of getting something right, that even though you didn't know the skill, and it's such as the other way around. And the idea is that these are observable whether you get something right, and these are different states. And the IRB, how many of you know what IRB is? The rest of you should just, give thanks. It's the Institutional Review Board that governs human subjects research at University of the United States. And it's, did I hear somebody make mention sounds? Yeah. Oh, Bev, yeah. Right. It's a lot of red tape. Let's see. What did? Oh yes, I'm trying to remember why did I. Yeah, because the IRBs get really upset if you try to find out what knowledge is in the student's head by using a scalpel. All right. So up till then, we had been doing knowledge tracing, and we'd also been doing controlled experiments to so knowledge tracing to find out what does the kid know. Embedded experiments to find out, to compare different sorts of tutor help. Joe had, again, an elegantly simple after-the-fact insight of adding a node here in order to tease apart 2 things. The scaffolding effects of help. That is, if the tutor gives help on a word, like for example saying a word, and the kid just parrots the word, well, yeah, they do much better right then. But are they learning anything? And what I'll teach here, the learning effects, is it actually affecting the knowledge? And so by using the same machinery of basic knowledge tracing, and let's see, did you use BNTSM for this? Yeah. Yeah. Taiman Cheng is someplace around here. Oh, there he is. Thanks. He did the added onto the BaseNet toolkit an add-on for BNTSM, the student modeling, so that you could put in a compact declarative description of one of these networks, and then it would compile into 5 times as long MATLAB code within BNT to do stuff. So that was a very nice tool. And by the way, it's part of the EDM toolkit that's available online that Yambo references next to. And Joel Bergman, let's see. Bergman, sorry. Anyway, does help. That's a fully linked drum roll. So what Joe looked at is the value of these parameters in the two cases. So think of this parameter already know as having a subscript. So we split the parameter into two parameters. One of them is there's no help given, one is there is help given. And with these models, that's a different paper we got on, desperately seeking subscripts, another, it's all in the title. In modeling decisions, you might decide these knowledge bases, but the decisions about subscripts, that is to say, where to split a parameter into multiple parameters for different students or different skills or different cases or whatever, there's an awful lot of action there. So it's a tremendously important modeling decision. All right, so what did this show? They already knew that they were much likelier to already know that they didn't get help. This makes sense because they're asking for help. Here's the helps part. So if you look at these numbers, there is a small but statistically significant difference that said that if they got help, they actually were a little bit likelier to learn it. And then this just says, well, if they get help, their immediate performance is much likely to be correct. So if they got help on the word, they're very unlikely to slip on it, and they're very likely, even if they didn't know to get it right. All right. So what helps best? So, okay. 10. Good. My aim is to run out of time, then I won't get too embarrassed. So I do want to leave time for questions. All right.
We're into break.
Oh, we're into break. Yeah. Okay. You get the general idea. Are there questions?
So, Jack, can I tell you what you didn't convince me of?
Absolutely.
I'm not convinced that you followed Herb Simon's strategy of picking important questions and addressing them. It looks kind of like you picked questions you were curious about or kind of stumbled on after the fact. Care to comment?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And that's something that I admire people's choices in this room about picking important questions. It's funny because we never discussed this, but that is something that's bugged me because I've been thinking, gee, if I was really going to go, I think that the one question that I chose that was really important was literacy. And since then I've been kind of moving around, and it turns out that some people like the questions well enough to publish the papers, but I don't sit down and say, what's the most important question I ought to work on? And probably those who are graduate students, or for whom it is not too late, you really ought to do that. So, yeah, 100% totally guilty. I wish I weren't.
He who hesitates is lost. Could you tell us what happens when people hesitate?
I'm doing it right now. Can you buy me time by clarifying the question?
You mentioned that the hesitations weren't predicted.
Yes.
In various conditions.
The amounts of hesitation.
Yeah, the amount of hesitations. So have you figured out what they do during those hesitations? Have you looked at the hesitation mechanisms to see what they do?
Not past the explanation that I gave, which I'll repeat. By the way, we know what politicians do during hesitations. They say, I'm so glad you asked that question, while they're desperately thinking of what they're going to say to reply. So if they didn't retrieve, the fluency is about sped retrieval. So I'll make up an answer as I go along. fluency is about compiling and chunking and things like that. There's some sort of, I don't know what's getting chunky compiled, if you're not familiar with the term chunking. But if you don't have that, then you have to revert to using a completely different mechanism of deciphering and thinking, okay, what letters map to what sounds, and maybe reasoning by analogy. But the apparently, it might just be that our data is too noisy to pick up a pattern, or we haven't looked at the right variables. But apparently, it's that you have to go back. It's sort of like, I'll make up a wacky analogy. Suppose you start compiling a program, except that the compiler doesn't finish running, and then you have to run it. The fact that you spent some time compiling the program is of no use. You have to revert to the interpreter. Actually, I have a question. When does the break start? 7 minutes ago. So let me see. That leaves time for how many questions? Negative. Okay. Why don't we take a couple, like two more questions? Okay. Yeah. Can you take the? Can you either yell or grab the mic?
So, speech recognition was too many half-hours and there must be accuracy in it. So I was wondering how genetically you deal with that.
Okay, for those of you who didn't hear the question, and probably so, it was that speech recognition for children is hard, so what do we do about it? Besides whine a lot, well, one thing we're careful to do is to dance around that limitation in the design of the tutor. So it never ever says you were wrong. It never ever says you were right, which would be almost as bad if the kid's wrong. Children do not fully master the phonemic system of their language, at least in English, until they're age 8 or 9. The last one to go, by the way, according to the Iowa Articulation Norms study by Ann Smith at Kansas State, which is one of the first factoids I read. The last one to go is the American R. So kids are still saying wabbit instead of rabbit. The answer to the reading tutor is that we shoot fish in a barrel, to use an idiom. That is, we know the sentence that the kid is supposed to be reading. So the result is that the tutor is very tolerant of mispronunciation. And a mispronunciation is not a reading mistake. So that's the difference between reading and language learning. As long as a kid says a word, reads a word the way they would if speaking it, then they might have a speech defect. They might be saying wabbit, but they know what the word means. That's not a terribly satisfactory answer, but basically we do the best we can with the level of technology that we have. And the last question will be that everybody wants to, Joe. I think it just did. So thank you very much.